Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I've got my notebook so you know this is serious. This is going to become a set of videos along the lines of the Project Orchids as far as being organised is concerned, but not separate thing altogether. It's a combination of a couple of suggestions from viewers and some input from me to make it organised. You know me, I have to be organised, otherwise things start falling apart. Now, the observant of you will find something over my shoulder that you might find a little unusual, but it's the subject of another video, so you're not going to find out today. Right, new set of videos, starting with this one. These are orchid progress updates, and what I've done is in my notes, I've gone through my notes, and because there wasn't too much going on during January, February and March, I've made a note of all the orchids that had work done on them during those 3 months. Those will be called Set 1, and this is their first progress update. You won't get another one for at least 3 months for these orchids, for this set. Now in April I did an awful lot of work, so April may well have to be split into 2, so that would be Set 2 and Set 3. I did a lot in April, I really got cracking. Probably too much for a single video. Yeah, so this is the idea. I go through my notes, I jot down all the ones that had work done, their name, what got done, and what I thought the state of them was at that time. So these are brief notes, not elaborate. Now I've got to go and get all these orchids and get them out. In this particular case there's too many to go on my table in one go, so it'll have to be split into, you know, like I'll do some and we'll take a quick break, I'll be back, put those away and get some more out. Now the exception to this set are the cymbidiums, because quite a lot of those were repotted, but I'm going to do those as a separate thing. So the cymbidiums will get their own video basically because I've got one hanging on in here that's still in bloom that hasn't been repotted yet, and may not get repotted this year. It may just get potted on into a bigger pot because it's very crammed in that one. Anyway, so that's the idea. There's no, well, there's a complete randomness to this because it's the orchids I worked on. So there'll be multiple genera, there'll be some that were in a state of rescue, some that were doing well when they were repotted. It's going to vary a lot, and I hope it's going to be interesting because it is going to take a bit of work to do these videos. So at the end of July we will probably do part 1 of the work I did in April, and then perhaps a week or 2 later we'll do the second part of those I did sort of towards the end of April, and then for another one I'll have a look at what else I did through the year. There's no point in doing progress updates too soon after the work was done. You know, there's just no point. So it's going to have to be at least a 3-month lag before we do a progress update. So that's the theory, and this is the first one in the group of videos. I'll make a playlist for them so they can all go together. And as I said, the ones that I do in an individual video will be given a set name which will stay with them. So this is Set 1. Right, let's get going. Okay, I've managed to actually get all the plants out in one go. So we have a table full of plants over here, and 2 of them I want to look at are actually in bloom, so they're actually out already. I've got the camera around this way because the light's coming in from that side, so as I hold the plants up to the camera they should be lit up rather than me shadowing them, if you see what I mean. Now I'm going to try and do these in date order, but that might not work depending on whether I can get at them on this thing. So back in January there were only 2 plants worked on in January, which is fair enough. That's not really a good time to be working on plants. The first one is this Brassia. This is Brassia Santa Barbara. what I will do for each plant, I'll put a pop-up with the proper name, full name, and a pop-up of the bloom if I've got one. Okay, now this one was split up into, what does it say here? This was 2 plants, so there's 2 plants in here to grow on. The older part of the plant is quite desiccated, but what we've got is some good strong new growths with some good strong roots coming out. So it's growing on. We've even got a back bulb round here, the end of the plant, with a new growth coming out. So we've got new growths and new roots. So it's coming on okay. The roots are relatively new along with the new growth, so that's actually sat there doing nothing for some time. But it's underway now. These are all going to have to go on the floor. Right, that's number 1. Number 2 in January was... that's the trouble, is finding them and then getting at them. I would like to do them in... If I do them in the order that they were worked on, then next time we come to look at them, the order will be already there, if you see what I mean. Right, this one is the Black Comet. And again, this one sat around doing nothing for some considerable time, but at last it's coming into growth. We've got some root growth, we've got a new growth pushing on, and signs of a potential second new growth. So this one's been doing nothing for some time and is now progressing, and I'm happy that that's progressing in a reasonable manner. Cattleya type, effectively, just about. In the alliance, as they say. So that's that one. Then we move on to February. I've got these over 2 pages because I found another couple. Where are we now? Right, so the one that was worked on first was the zygo hybrid. This is the one that has the pale coloured blooms, if I can find it. They're all up here somewhere. That's this one. Right, so this one was not in a very good state when it was potted on. It's in a mix of bark, perlite and charcoal, I think, this one. But it is now pushing roots out, so we do have root activity. There's a fair bit of algae in that pot, so I'll have to repot that one again next year when I wouldn't normally have had to. But it's in its black pot now, so it shouldn't spread. And these are the 2 growths that grew on. And those are the growths that are now, only now, producing new roots. And then we have another little one round the front here. So not progressing at any great rate, but not dead yet, which with zygos is always a bonus. Right, next one. So I'm having to tick these off as I go, or I'll end up doing them twice. Next one in February was... 15th, that was the 17th, so the next one was this one. This is an odont type, and it's the one that I got from my friend Brian Gould. It was in a show actually, and I said, "God, that's nice, isn't it?" He said, "Do you want it?" And I said, "Yes, please." So, well, he didn't give it to me, he sold it to me, but nonetheless. And this is Odont Anna Claire. And this was put in a mix of sphagnum, grow stones and bark. It also had a back bulb taken off. Now what we've got here is a new growth that is progressing slowly, very slowly. And the older part of the plant, this was the bulb that was in bloom when I got it. The bulb behind it is slightly desiccated but not totally shriveled, and I assume, yes, there are some new roots starting under that new growth. So it's coming on, slowly but surely. If you can get odonts growing well with a decent root system and then maintain it, they're actually quite easy to grow. And what we did with that one was we actually took a back bulb off, because it's a rare plant and it was worth having a go. Well, that's the back bulb, single bulb. It's got a nice new growth coming, and that new growth is pushing out roots. So that new growth should progress up to a reasonable size bulb. The roots are going right round the pot here, so we've got good roots growing. I can see at least 3 root tips. So coming on. So that was the back bulb, and that's a rare occurrence for me. I don't do that very often because I don't want the space taken up with something that's likely to fail. Okay, some work, some don't. So that was that. That's the 15th. And then the last one in February was the other zygo, which is Louisendorf. Now we've very recently looked at this because it's a project orchid, so we actually looked at this last Friday. Nonetheless, it's now part of this set as well. Zygo Louisendorf, a lovely set of new roots forming in the pot, lots of root tips growing, and up the top of the pot, basically a bulb that is not desiccated, with 2 new growths, one pushing on and one just starting, with roots going down into the pot. The oldest bulb is absolutely desiccated, so there's very little support there. But this bulb's okay, so it's coming on. Again, in my environment, with my care and my luck, any zygo that's not dead is classed as doing well. Right, that's that one done. Now we move on to March. We did a fair bit in March. We did an awful lot on the 11th. Right, so we'll do those as a set coming along together. And the first one is not that one. Well, which one is it then? It's one of these couple. Is this one there? Nope, hang on. Nuisance wants to come out. You coming out? Make it your mind. Stay there then. The mind works very slow on older cats. Very slow. Comes into the category of sometime today would be good. Right, first one. This is an oncidium type, and it's Tahitian Dancer. I believe it has sotoanum in it. It might even be half sotoanum. It was slow to get going. It was stuck in bark, grow stones and perlite. Slow to move. Basically there's a new growth coming up here and another new growth coming up here. They were slow to start, and they are only just showing signs of new roots coming from those new growths. The roots on the existing plant are not good at all. Right, that's that one. So that was Tahitian Dancer. Over the page. Right, we've got this. This one was actually labelled Cambria. There's not a lot you can do when they're labelled Cambria, because that's, strictly speaking, not even a valid name for an orchid nowadays. It's used as a generic term for orchid or houseplant. Basically, this one has beautiful blooms on it. The older part of the plant's not too good, but it did throw this new growth up, which is reasonable. And that did actually bloom with a very, very poor spike and has not developed into a proper bulb. But what we've got now is 2 quite strong new growths coming up here and here. This one is not producing roots yet. This one is. So we have some new roots generating here. The older part of the plant is quite desiccated. And again, this one went in bark, grow stones and some charcoal. So yeah, it's I won't say it's doing well, but at least it's got new growths and they're pushing on, and we now have some roots starting. So coming on. So that was the one labelled Cambria. Right. Right, this one is troublesome. It puts up distorted growths and it looks like it's doing it again. It just will not grow properly. It was labelled as Oncidium Cheyenne. I suspect that's a trade name, and it won't grow. It's got some, I think it's a genetic disorder, quite honestly, which is a shame because the blooms are absolutely gorgeous. But anyway, it put up this lovely strong new growth. If those of you have been around the channel a while, this actually put a new growth up once that after it started, it split into two, and neither of them progressed very well. It then pushed up another one that wasn't so bad, and this new growth here is not right. The leaves in the centre are dead. So I don't know what that's going to do. It is producing some roots, however. That one went in, that was a mix of bark and perlite by the looks of it, with a few growth stones. So not doing very well, and may not progress very well at all, that one. It just doesn't seem to want to grow. Right, so that was Cheyenne. Where are we? In the model here. There it is. I was just going to say, I did write it down and remember writing it. I had to look up how to spell it. Right, we're still on the 11th. Right, what we've got next then is this is Wildcat Bobcat. This hasn't long gone out of bloom. This has lovely large bulbs on it. It's in a mix of growth stones, bark and some charcoal, and it's currently pushing up its next growth, which this time started before it finished blooming. It hasn't done that before, but it's also got a second new growth down in there. So in theory, it's now built up the strength to push up two new growths at once, but one is more advanced than the other. If those progress nicely and both bloom, it'll be a staggered blooming, because one is, you know, a good couple of weeks ahead of the other one, so it'll be a staggered blooming. As far as roots are concerned, they're not brilliant, but they're there. And obviously the two new growths will produce more. So it's certainly got enough roots to be supporting it, because the old bulbs aren't desiccating. There's a lot of storage there in those old bulbs. So okay, that one. Doing okay. So that was Wildcat Bobcat. Off you go. Take you a morning to put these back where they came from, if I can remember where they came from, of course. Right, I've done one out of order. Let me just finish those that were done on the 11th, otherwise I really will get in a muddle. In fact, we have finished those done on the 11th. Unfortunately, this one was done on the 10th, so this one should have been first. Now this is a project orchid, and we've recently looked at it, so I'm spending virtually no time on this. Paphiopedilum blackjack, subject of a project video last Friday. Lots and lots of nice roots growing, plenty of growing tips, and several fans pushing on, which may or may not bloom. We'll have to wait and see. But the latest fan to start is this one here. So it's doing okay, and that went in a mix of bark, small bark perlite with some sphagnum moss, but not much. So not heavy on the moss, just enough hopefully to help keep it moist a little bit longer. These shouldn't dry out too fast, so that's that one. Stay up there now, I've got enough room. Right, where are we? That's the 10th, we've done all the 11th. Right, we've got one on the 16th. The next one, this is this miltonia. Now you're going to come out of the black pot so that we can see you. Yes, you are. Jolly good. Now this is 4 pieces. The plant was split up, old parts taken off, and 4 pieces planted up to grow on. So no attempt to bloom these latest growths on this year. The growths that it produces next year will be the ones that we will hopefully bloom. And we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, excuse me, 10 new growths. So from 4 plants we've got 10 growths, so yeah, most have pushed up 2 obviously. They're progressing anything from that to just starting. Roots are not blatantly obvious. It hasn't filled the pot with roots, but if you look through the pot, you can see that the most advanced new growth is pushing roots out. So obviously on this particular plant, the growths need to get going a bit before the roots start. Yeah, so we've got roots in this area, which are the two most advanced growths. The others will follow suit. And that's in small bark, perlite and sphagnum moss. And it appears to be doing okay. It appears to be doing okay. Time will tell. Those new growths need to push on, obviously, and mature some nice bulbs to put some strength into the plant so that the next set of new growths have got some backup, and then they should bloom. That was miltonia. Well, it's a hybrid based on Morelliana. It isn't actually the species. So that was come on, can't read my own writing here. That was the miltonia. Right, that was the 16th. Next we've got not much left now. Right, we've got this Bialara thing. This is Marfitch Renaissance Coral, and it's been in a state of recovery for a while now. This is its last attempt. If it doesn't grow now and produce some decent roots, it's going in the bin, because it won't go. It's just one of those that just will not grow. So it's been potted up back in March, and it's done virtually nothing since. There are a few little green bits showing here, but there's no sign of a new growth, but there's some signs of some root activity. It needs to produce a new growth. It's not going to survive long if it just sits like that, is it? So that's a state of recovery, I would call that. Not desperation, but you know, a state of recovery. That's the only thing I can say for that. And it's not doing it very well. So that's that one. That's never grown well, that plant. Right, next we've got a set of 3 odonts that have had trouble being identified, and 2 of them are in bloom now, so you know, we're getting there. So we've sort of looked at these relatively recently. Now, one of these is Oncostelli or Wilsonara or something like that, tiger tail. Which one it is, I'm still not sure. I'm waiting for these blooms to open nicely and give them a week, because they're colour changes. Both of these I'm going to show you now. Anyway, this one is 2 plants in a pot, one of which is still pushing on its new growth, or is pushing on its new growth, following blooming, and the other plant is blooming on its latest new growth. They're very attractive blooms, and this went in the mix of small bark, sphagnum and perlite. Supposed to be very good for root production, and it seems to be doing its thing. So I'm trying to hold that leaf up. The roots are sort of coming out here, and we've got roots here and here. So we have nice root tips going down in the pot, which is what we like to see. So that's one of them. The other one's right next to it because it's in bloom. As I said, these are already out on the table. As I said, one of these 2 is tiger tail. Once I've absolutely identified which one is tiger tail, I know that the other one isn't, so they will get labelled up accordingly then. This again is 2 plants in the pot, and it's doing the same thing. The plant over here hasn't long finished blooming and is pushing up its new growth. This plant is blooming on its latest growth, so they're growing in a staggered form. Quite honestly, next time this gets repotted, these 2 need their own pot. They need to be grown on as individual plants, I think. The blooms warrant having, you know, an individual pot be allowed to grow on. We've got root activity again, that's in the same mix. The small bark, sphagnum and perlite, which for these odont types does seem to be working. It does seem to be working. So that's doing okay, or should I say they are doing okay, because there is 2 plants in there. And then the third one, grouped together, they were all repotted at the same time. That's why they're together, if you see what I mean. The other one has got a very long, complicated name, which has been positively identified, so the pop-up will do that for you. And this, I believe, yes, this is a single plant. This isn't two plants in a pot. Nice strong new growth coming on. There's not huge sign of root activity, but there are root tips. Yeah, as long as I can see root tips, then the roots are making their way to the edge of the pot. Bearing in mind these would have been pushed into the middle of the pot to give them room to grow. So that one's coming on, bloomed not that long ago. And as I said, I have got a name for this one. This is a good example. You know, I said I'm starting to get what looks like mould on the plants. This one shows it up well. Yeah, you can see I can wipe it off very easily. And it is mould, it's not anything else. So we will have to, in a watering session, when I've got to get them all out, I'll have to have a little dish with probably Physan 20 mixed up with weak solution and some cotton wool pads and give them all a wipe off. I mean, look at the underside of that leaf. You know, it's quite distinctive. They need cleaning off. Strictly speaking, it doesn't actually harm them to any great extent, but as long as it's there, it's capable of doing something it shouldn't be doing. If it's not there, it can't. Right, so I believe that was it. Marfitch we've done, and that was the odonts times 3. Yes, that's the lot. Right, so I don't know how long that's gone on for, but that was a lot of plants covered then in one go. You might think those updates are brief, but there's not much more you can say. Are there new growths? Is there root growth? What were they potted in, when they were done, and the date they had the work done on them. So the pop-ups will show the plant name and the date repotted, and I think I might put the mix they were potted in the pop-up, and we've got a permanent record of it in the video, and a pop-up the other side of the screen showing the blooms if I've got a picture of the blooms, which in most cases I should have. So that's the format. We'll be doing another one end of July, and that will be based on the first half of April's work, and then probably another one a couple of weeks later with the second half of April's work. And then we'll probably have to wait till the end of August to be able to do like May, what I did in May, and you know, because as I said, you need at least 3 months, otherwise, you know, they could well have done nothing, so we need to wait for that time. So I hope you like this. It's a bit fast paced, yes. It covers an awful lot of plants, but I keep getting asked how things are doing. How's so-and-so doing since it was repotted? How's so-and-so doing in that mix you used? So this is collecting all of that information together in a single video for a set of plants. So stick your comments in, let me know what you think, and if you believe that without dramatic changes, small things, yeah, might be an improvement for next time round, let me know. If you don't let me know, I can't take it on board. I might not take it on board anyway, but if you don't tell me, I don't get the choice, do I? Right, so that's today's video. Today are Thursday, the last time I looked. Tomorrow will be the Project Orchid video. I think we're up to orchid number 6. That'll be for tomorrow. And Saturday might be that one. The story and everything else that goes with it. Right, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.